Welcome to Simpson at 8. I am here at the Fiji Museum Thurston Garden Botanical Gardens car park. Today we are going to discuss and explore the issue of the proposed rezoning of this list to put an area for the Indian High Commission to have their embassy. An issue that's generated a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings, a lot of opposition, and also support. On Simpson at 8, we are going to look at exploring the facts and the issues surrounding the areas to make you decide whether you oppose or whether you support the move. I am going to go now to the Minister for Lands, and we'll discuss his plans and what his proposed ideas are for this development. And later we'll be talking to a representative from the Fiji Museum, and we hope you'll enjoy the show. Minister Bula.
Hello, Mr. Simpson. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to show me the plans and what you have in mind for the botanical gardens.
So if I may give you a brief background of how this thing came about.
All right.
See, the lot here, this was all state land in the 1900s, 1930s.
Right.
So at that time, which is now the Thurston Garden, it was somewhere up here in Waimanu Road, which was known as the Botanical Gardens. So it was brought down in 1913 to the current
So
site.
this is the
here.
major plan of Suva.
The whole is the major plan of Suva.
Right. Yes.
And this is where the current Thurston Garden is.
Okay.
This is the square, is the museum,
Right.
and this was all part of the current British High Commissioner's residence.
Yes.
Is currently here. It was all part of the Thurston Gardens. It was what was called Thurston Gardens. This is the historical.
Where
one.
is Albert Park here?
Albert Park is here. That's
Okay.
opposite it.
Albert Park, and that's
Yeah. This is the combo apartments here. Albert Park, Thurston Gardens.
the museum.
Museum is the square here.
British High Com.
British High Commissioner's residence
Right.
is here.
Okay.
This is the proposed site that we are talking about when it comes to the Indian High Commission, proposed Indian High Commission site.
Which is generally the car park towards.
Towards the wall, towards
we
the
will
British.
see
Yes,
after,
in a while.
yeah.
So if I come to the
The bigger plan.
Now
Right.
this is just giving a close shot of what I was showing here from the whole of Suva,
Right.
the Thurston Garden. This is the bigger plan. So this is the Albert Park.
Yes.
This is the current Thurston Garden, 10 acres, 2 routes and 7 patches. The current museum is here on lot 3, and this is the road that leads up to the museum.
Right.
And this is right opposite. The land that you're talking about here, the 2 acres, it is right opposite the Thurston Garden. No plants, no flora or fauna here.
It's mainly gravel and
It's gravel, bush, yeah.
at the moment.
Yes.
And the British High Com is
Here, somewhere here.
is there.
Yeah.
So you are confirming that none of the botanical garden itself.
Exactly. None of the botanical
Will
garden
be
itself will be affected by this development. It's far away from the botanical garden, in fact. If you look at the museum actually occupies this area and part of it in front where all the cars are parked, and Thurston Garden is towards the Queen Elizabeth Drive on the other side.
Will there be restrictions or any?
Not at all. I'll actually show you the plan where. The idea was that this entire thing was under Suva City Council. Suva City Council lease. When the proposal came for the development, Suva City Council surrendered the lease to us, and then we are in the process of now creating 2 new leases, one for Suva City Council, one for the Indian High Commission.
So Suva City Council will still manage.
It still manage this one.
The botanical gardens.
Yes, the museum, the botanical gardens, even the car park that I'll show you is also Suva City Council.
So not all the car park will be taken.
No, not all the car park, not all, only part of it.
Okay.
And the exact plan is here. This is the new plan of the development. So it's a snapshot of this area here. You see the museum, as I showed, lot 3, the road here,
Yeah.
the road, and this is the museum.
This is the museum.
The road leading up to the museum is still there. Even the car park, we are giving 900 square meters for one car park and another 995 square meters for another car park. That's almost 2 hectares of land here.
Yes, almost
Half acre.
Half acre, yes.
Half acre. So the embassy proposed driveway will be here, entering this road here. Driveway, to the embassy here. So this is where the
So more or less behind
the car park. Yes. So the public will have access to these car parks. Public will have access to the museum. Public will have access to the botanical garden. Nothing to do. Even the road that is there is not encroached.
Will not be affected. So they're getting that's about an acre, just over an acre.
Just over an acre. Yeah. So I think there's a bit of misconception with the people who are
Perhaps
objecting.
Well, perhaps the government itself has not explained it properly.
This is the procedure. I mean the objection period, the hearing that Suva City Council will now take. That's where the explanation comes in.
Because a lot of the objections are the botanical gardens.
Yes.
People are very sensitive; they would not be affected.
Yes.
Secondly, is the talk and the view and the belief that many have of this as being ancestral lands.
Yeah.
And belonging, to traditional landowners of Suva in the past. Now you saying that this was state land, it was in the previous plan that you.
It was always a state land.
This one.
Yeah. Because you see the different lease holdings over here. Freehold was taken out many years ago under the British. Portion of it was taken out. Brown ones as freehold land. Then there's old mission here, Mission Hill. And this government house, the current president's resident government house, was also part of this.
State, crown.
And then land bought by annuity, and the rest is all government land here.
So it's from when they did the plan, it was held as state land.
Yes, as far back as in history we can go, it's all state land. Even in 1913, when when Thurston Garden was brought in, the botanical gardens were brought in, it was still government land. That was brought in from there to here. And in 1976, I think it was renamed as Thurston Garden.
Okay.
After Mr. Thurston.
When the car park was built there in the museum, was there, to your knowledge, was there any objections about the use of the area as?
Not at all. Because from our records, even people who are claiming it to be an ancestral ground or ancestral property had no objections when buses were parked there, when this place had car parks, people were parking their cars. It was an unformed portion, so it's not a formal car park, but people were just parking their cars. People are still playing volleyball there at times. So, and I've also found out that there's not been any meke performed there in the past 50 years or so. So it's basically idle land, idle state land.
But you did say in the media that if evidence was presented, you would consider it.
No, I didn't say I'll consider it. What I said was that there was no evidence before me to confirm or not, or to
that it was an ancestral land, it was a burial ground.
Yeah, I said there's nothing in our files to say that it was burial ground.
Now, what do you know about the what some people are saying that this was formerly the village of Suva?
That was, in fact, a part of a judgment here. There was a case going on in the High Court.
It's still going?
The High Court had decided against the landowners. They obviously appealed it. I think they're seeking leave to appeal, so we can't discuss the appeal part. But for the High Court part, the court held that there was no grounds.
Of what?
Of the landowners claiming that the Suva city land, whole of this part belonged to the Suva landowners.
That area of the botanical gardens where they say the Suva village used to be.
Yes.
You're aware of that used to be there?
They claim that, but I don't see that in the older plain itself. There's only a small portion here that was called the Old Suva village here.
Old Suva village.
Even in the other corner of the Thurston Garden, not even covering the entire Thurston
So
Garden.
it's one part of Thurston Garden,
Yeah.
which is, well, it would be considered a village area, the area of the village.
Yeah.
So this would be the corner towards Government House?
No, corner towards the Kambao Road.
Oh, to the Kambao Road.
Junction of the Kambao Road and Queen Elizabeth Drive.
So more or less like opposite the bowling club.
Opposite the bowling club.
Opposite the bowling club.
Yeah.
That would be, if I can get the cameras closer, that area in the old plan was considered the old Suva village, Suva town. The old Suva town.
It was called the old Suva town.
That was
when the town started.
history was burnt and sacked.
Yeah. When the development started, that's where it was.
So that was one part of the whole Thurston Gardens. That is the museum there.
Yeah, the museum is there.
And that is the proposed area
No, this is the proposed area here.
of over here.
This is the British High Commissioner's residence, which was cut off from the Simpson Garden and leased to him.
So the Simpson Garden actually had gone right up there.
Yeah.
The British High Commission took that, and that is the proposed Indian High Commission.
Yes.
So you stating it will not be part of the whole
Yeah.
super village?
It's not part of that at all here. Because it's
And
far,
you
it's
have
far away.
no record that it was a burial ground?
Yeah, because from the most historic or ancient plain that we have got, there's no mention of any such ground.
So, why was this place chosen? If we can go back, I mean, were you part of the initial discussion?
No, I wasn't.
You
I mean, it was a 2014 arrangement. But I might say that all the state land, all the state property, the Ministry for Lands is the custodian
Right.
of all the state property, and it's our duty in the interest of the state to make the best use of any state property that's there. So if there's a piece of land that's been lying idle, and I've gone on record by saying that from my record here, for the past 100 years, that portion of land is not being used.
Right.
So if it's lying idle, it's in the best interest of the state to use it for some purpose.
So the decision was made before your time to,
Yes,
to
yes.
apportion that part. Now
Yeah.
there was if you can just tell me, the agreement was was agreement with the government of India
Yes.
that the two would exchange.
Yes, from my discussion with the Foreign Affairs, they're the proper party to brief you on that. But from my discussion, there's a place in India. It's called Chanakapuri. Chanakapuri. That is where most of the embassies of other countries
Is that in Delhi?
hosted. In Delhi,
Yes.
in the capital, very close to the Delhi Parliament, the Indian Parliament. So this land there houses a lot of other embassies. Now it's very prime property. So they are giving us a portion of the land there that was worth $55 million back in 2014.
55 million, you mean in rupees or in
US dollars.
US dollars.
55 million
That's
US
quite a
dollars.
huge amount.
It's currently in Fijian dollars. We're looking at about, in today's rate, is about 120 million Fijian dollars.
Okay. That was offered which year?
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So this was done by the Minister for Lands, really negotiated by the Minister for Foreign Affairs
Foreign
and
Affairs.
Lands.
Yes. The discussion would have taken place between the two countries through our foreign ministries. I was not privy of the discussion,
Right.
but from what I have gathered is that this is what the arrangement was, that there'll be a land exchange, and it's because of, India doesn't give a land like that to any country. It's because of a very strong diplomatic ties that gone beyond the centuries. I think it's 150 years. And that is why they considered that
So prime property worth 55
million US dollars. Yes.
So then the government decided we'll find a place.
Yes. Yes.
Something
To reciprocate
to
that,
reciprocate, and
yes.
then this place was chosen.
Yeah.
Are you aware of were there any other options considered?
I'm not aware of.
Because a lot of people are saying, as you are aware, why don't they find another place that has
Yeah.
less historical significance?
But the question is that the question of historical significance obviously comes from some documents. I mean, I don't have any documents of such, and there's no real guarantee that if you find another place, there'll be not another claim.
Because some people say it doesn't have to be documents, but they have oral history.
Yeah.
That,
Actually, I haven't seen the petition that they filed. It's with Suva City Council. I haven't had a chance.
But you look into that, yeah?
Suva City Council will look into
Will
that.
look into it.
Well, how the lands department, or how the lands ministry operates is that all the stakeholders will submit their papers to us
Yeah.
after the objection period, after the interviews, and we will, before issuing the list, we'll see if all the legal requirements have been completed.
Okay.
So the different divisions do their part in this.
So you can assure people, those that have concerns, that'll all be looked into.
Yeah, Suva City Council is doing exactly that, and that's why there was an objection period called. There's been people were allowed, as in a democratic country, they were allowed to file their objections. They are allowed to approach Suva City Council and
And I
give their
believe the
reasons.
objections are now closed.
Yeah, I think it's closed now.
It's closed. And then everything will be considered, and then the final decision will be made that you have followed.
Yes.
You've been seeing a lot of the complaints and a lot of the concerns raised in the media, on social media and the others. Do you feel there's been some misconception?
I'm grateful that my TV chose to actually come and see the plans. Some other media organizations are taking the picture of the actual botanical gardens where the current plants are and the current benches are.
And that is misleading.
It's misleading. It's telling the people, it's trying to give the impression to the people that the government is trying to take away your botanical garden. That's not the case. If you even take a walk there, if you see the distance between where the actual botanical garden is, where people sit and enjoy with their families, it is quite far away from the proposed site. And there'll be no disturbance.
So you are assuring no disturbance,
no disturbance
to the botanical gardens?
Yes.
And the botanical gardens are protected?
Protected, it's protected. In fact, if you see this document here itself, it's a separate lease altogether. 10 acres, 2 routes and 7 patches of Thurston Garden is outside.
So the Thurston Garden lease won't be touched at all?
Won't be touched at all.
Right. And not even the museum?
Not even the museum.
Except for the road that's...
not even the museum car park. The museum car park remains with them.
Giving the land, what's built is there is up to the Indian government?
Yes. But the plan, obviously, they can't just build anything. They'll have to come and get their plans approved by Sabah City Council again.
Okay.
It's an effort by the, it's not one ministry working in isolation of the other. It's all together. So
you're saying that everything is going to be followed? All the
yes,
laws
all the laws will be followed. In fact, my being here is an assurance that I've followed it so far. The law has been followed so far. So there's no reason to say that the laws will not be followed, and the people of Fiji and even the objectors will not be heard.
Okay.
If you look at the right opposite the road, there's Albert Park there, and it's a most modern recreational ground built by the government, Sabah City Council, very lately. And there we always see people playing rugby there, touch rugby, cricket. If that's not disturbing right opposite the road, not disturbing the peace of the Thurston Garden, I don't see any reason why an embassy being built here will disturb the peace here. The other thing to note here is that when the British High Commission, which is right next to the
it's the
proposed
British High
ground.
Commission residence.
Residence, yeah, British High Commission residence. It's right next to the Indian High Commission residence here. And when that was built, there was no issue of disturbance as well. So I think it's again, it's an unfounded fear. We are confirming, and we have shown the plans that altogether, all the plans combined tell one story, that the building an embassy here, very next to the British High Commission residence, is not going to disturb any peace of Thurston Garden.
So let's get the cameras to look at that. That's the Gordon House, which is the British High Commission residence. Now, this is a commission. This is not a residence of the.
Yeah.
Or will it be a residence as well?
No, it won't be a residence.
It will be a commission.
It'll be a commission. In fact, if you look at it, it's of much better use of government property when you give it, when you exchange it for a commission to be built, which of course, as you know, the diplomatic ties, the trade links that we have with India is going to enhance that tie.
So a good deal.
Yeah, good deal. It's a good deal in all respects.
In your view,
Yes.
Okay.
Commercial-wise, it's currently this portion in dollar worth is less than $2 million. It's close to 1.5 million, if I may say. Fijian dollars. The value of this land, yes.
Acre.
Yeah, less than just about an acre of land. The value would be 1.2 million Fijian dollars. Compare that to the 55 million US dollars, or 120 million US dollars.
But the value
Fijian
of
dollars,
that area
yes.
where the commission will be.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to explain that.
Okay.
If we can go now and just have a look at the place so people can get a visual of the plans that you've
No worries, we'll do that.
stated. Thank you very much. We've just arrived here at the Botanical Gardens, at the Thurston Gardens, actually at the car park area of the Fiji Museum. If you look around me, that's the Botanical Gardens area, that's that side. This is the museum. This is the car park, and the minister has been good enough to bring us to show us the area where the proposed Indian High Commission will be, that Fiji is offering to the Indian government. So I'll go now and see him, and we'll talk about where exactly will the High Commission be situated. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for joining us here again. So we are now at the car park of Thurston Garden Botanical Gardens in the museum.
Yes.
For that side you have the museum, then that is the Botanical Garden.
That is the Botanical Garden, yes, away from here.
So that's about 30 to 50 meters away from the car park.
Away, yes.
Now this is the area Will this be part of the High Commission, or which area is
No,
being taken?
actually we are in the car park now. So if you look
Right.
at the plane here,
Yeah,
there is the Kambao Road. There's the Kambao Road here.
yeah.
There's a driveway that comes in. So all this part here, even this baka tree, is in the car park.
Okay.
Yeah. So all this is we are standing still in Suva City Council. If you move a bit this side, you see that popo tree there.
Yeah.
There's a popo tree. There's a pink marker there next to the
Okay.
popo tree.
One stick that has a pink ribbon,
Pink ribbon.
and then we also
Okay.
have the pink.
And on top there, just behind this, it's not here actually. It's somewhere here. So all these vehicles are in the resident car park.
Okay.
Yeah. The
So this
area-
is all untouched.
All untouched, all untouched.
I mean, all will be just remain part of the car park.
Yes.
Yeah?
This is the area we're talking about. Even the
Okay.
baka tree is outside of the proposed site development. You see the swamp there?
Right.
Swamp area, all these bushes. It's been neglected land for a long time.
That is the part we're talking about. So that's about an acre. So all this area, this has been an area that people just came and parked their cars and,
Yeah.
and basically it's been lying vacant for a very long time.
Basically
Now-
it's an unused and neglected piece
Right.
of land.
And that is not part of the botanical gardens at all.
Not part at all. You see, if you see from the distance, you can see how far the botanical gardens are. And that is closer to the Albert Park than is closer to this proposed site.
Okay.
So the question that you asked me in the office about the disturbance, you see more noise coming from the Albert Park.
To reaffirm what you're saying, the botanical gardens proper not being touched, the
Yes,
museums not being touched,
touched.
the car park not being touched.
Not being touched,
What we're
yeah.
showing is an area.
There's an area that's
Area that's here, 1
yeah.
acre. Basically, the Indian High Commission will be neighbors with the residents of the British High Commission.
Yes. So, if you-
So this was part of SCC. You've taken that out.
yeah.
Taken that out to convert to state land, which then will given to.
It's a lease on the state land. It's
Lease on
still
state
being
land,
leased
yeah.
by Suva City Council.
Right.
It was all being leased by Suva City Council. So they will maintain their lease. A new lease will be issued to the Indian High Commission.
So the Indian High Commission is not getting it converted into freehold. It is getting a lease,
Yes, it's getting a lease.
99 years.
It's not like the United States of America embassy. In that case, the land was bought off Telecom, and the government at that time converted the lease state land to freehold. So it's U.S. embassy's land forever. Here,
Say that again. So what
No.
happened was that land belonged to Telecom.
that land was state land leased by Telecom. So Telecom was our tenants,
Right.
the Princess Road U.S. Embassy land. That land, U.S. Embassy approached the Telecom to buy that land. So we
Put the embassy.
Yes, so the state was supposed to issue two leases, one lease to Telecom and part of that lease to US Embassy. But then the then government, SVT government that time, converted that state
SDL
land.
or SVT? SDL.
It must have been SDL, yeah.
Yeah.
Converted to freehold. So Telecom retains, we have a lease only with Telecom. The other portion, which could have been leased to us, 4.6 hectares, is now made freehold and given to the US Embassy.
So it belongs to them now.
It's been done now forever.
Okay.
But this one is different. This one is just a lease to the Indian Embassy. When they're done with it,
Done with it.
they return it to
But
us.
It
Yeah.
belongs to the state.
Yes.
So not turned it into freehold.
It's not going to be converted to freehold. And if you see that land has been lying idle for so many years.
So there are no other plans for this area.
No other
as far
plans.
as you.
As far as I'm aware, nothing was planned for this area. There's been no application for this area too.
And as far as you are aware, no records or anything that has come to you that says that it is an ancestral burial ground.
Nothing at all. The plans are very clear. In fact, I showed you the plans. There's no markers of such.
That it was the burial ground.
Yeah.
We will be speaking to some of the villages. You know, some have stated that according to the oral history, this was a burial ground, but you don't have a record of
Don't
that.
have a record. Nobody brought it up so far in the past so many years.
And when this place was used as a car park for buses and things, there was no objections.
No objection. When we look at the condition they have left the land here, buses have been backed up here, damaged the land. Nobody ever raised these issues.
Okay. So why do you think there is a lot of anger, concern, opposition to what you're trying to do, the government's efforts to give it to the Indian High Commission?
I think the way it's been portrayed, is that we're going to take the botanical gardens. But look at the distance. It's a good 100 meters from here to the botanical gardens. If the building is built there by the embassy, it's not going to touch the botanical gardens, as we said. And I think the misconception was, and I think some media organizations did put a picture of the botanical garden itself, not this portion. I think that's where the misconception comes. In fact, Ratu Inuki Kumambola explained it very properly in Parliament, and I think that's the best notice you can give to the public. In 2014, one of the members of the opposition did ask a question, and Ratu Kumambola, who was the then Foreign Affairs Minister, explained very aptly that it's a different portion of land. It's not the botanical gardens. It is, if you drive in, you look at the left, that's the proposed site, and the right is the botanical garden. I think people knew, and it only appeared 4 years later. You see, between 2014 and 2018, there was very little, no noise at all.
No noise, yeah.
And after 2018,
But
when
now, obviously, because you're trying to push forward with the plans.
As soon
So, how long is this going to take, you think?
it's really the time frames are with Suva City Council. They have objection
They'll go through the
period.
objections
They'll go through the
and the
objections,
concerns.
the consents. They might follow their processes. Maybe have a meeting, etc. I don't know. But the only time that we will see it is when all the paperwork is delivered to us.
Delivered to you. And then you take it on from there.
Yes.
And what about the arrangements with the land given by the Indian government? How is that proceeding?
I'm not privy to the discussion there.
Well, that's Foreign Affairs.
Foreign
is handling
Affairs
that.
will handle
Okay.
that.
So just for viewers, I'm standing with the minister here in the middle of the car park.
Yes.
Behind me is the museum. In front of me, if you can pan the camera, Sairusi, you'll show the botanical gardens. And the minister is confirming to Simpson and 8 now that that will not be touched at all. And to that side is Albert Park, big recreational area, government building. If you look behind me here, Nakumbau Apartments, that is the vacant land again. I'm trying to give you a 360. I'm not sure if it's going to work out, but that is the area that Indian High Commission residence is proposed to be, Indian High Commission is proposed to be established. Behind that, just basically there'll be neighbors with the British High Commission. So we hope on Simpson and 8 we've explained whether you support it or oppose it. We explain the facts surrounding the proposed residence, proposed High Commission for India that will take place. Welcome back to Simpson and 8. I'm joined now by Nemani Cipriano, the Fiji Museum Director, and he will be explaining their opposition, their views, their perspective about the proposed rezoning. So, beautiful day in the museum and the botanical gardens today. Do you get a lot of visitors around at this time?
Of course. Well, our peak periods basically are during May, June, July.
Yeah.
But in terms of school children visiting the museum,
It's like part of their field trips and
exactly. And now with the curriculum revised to include museums as a part of the field studies,
yeah.
so we get a lot of students coming in as well to come conduct the research and other educational stuff that they come and do inside the museum.
So we're here today to talk about the proposed building of the Indian High Commission. I was with the Minister for Lands, Honorable Minister for Lands here a few days ago, and we talked about where it was situated, how it would affect the botanical gardens, and what he pointed to this area, saying the car park would not be affected, that it would be what he called an idle land that has been neglected for a long time. And that the government, it's about an acre. The government is intending to give that to the Indian High Commission, the Indian government, in exchange for a piece of land in New Delhi. And the minister's position, he was quite firm on it, is that this will not affect the botanical gardens, the Thurston Gardens. So a lot of the concerns are misplaced. It will not affect the museum because the car park will remain. The museum will still have its lease. Basically, what they're trying to take off is this 1 acre to give to the Indian High Commission to have their embassy. Now, the Fiji Museum has put its opposition to this proposed development. Can you outline why you are opposed to it?
Thank you, Stan. Basically, the Fiji Museum Board of Trustees had submitted its written objection as per the advertisement to the CEO of Suva City Council, outlining its concerns in as far as the proposal for redevelopment and, of course, the rezoning of the site. Much of what we had submitted as part of the concerns to the Suva City Council is based on what was advertised in the papers.
Right.
The demarcation of this whole area encompassing the whole car park and the area you've mentioned as well. So hence the concern that the board has raised, based purely on an act that mandates the museum to do its work. The act is called, in short form, it's POAPI Act. It's the preservation of objects of archaeological and paleontological significance.
So that's an act, so it's established by law?
Established by law.
Right.
That mandates the work of the Fiji Museum to safeguard and declare and gazette sites that are of national heritage significance.
Okay.
But which have archaeological and paleontological remnants in there. So the concerns that we had raised is twofold. One is that through research and studies that our team has conducted, and basically written documentation that has happened in the past and basically that are available for access by everyone, is that this particular lot has archaeological, historical and natural heritage attributes that necessitates the sites to be protected
and kept. Now, what are these attributes?
Okay.
What is the archaeological and historical, cultural
Right.
attributes?
In terms of the archaeological attributes, as you know, this site is connected to the Thurston Gardens Botanical Site. When the Thurston Gardens Botanical Site was developed, it separated as previously this was a whole piece of area, and as you might have heard or read, and basically through literature they've been written, the old Suva site.
Yes.
So even some of this documentation had documented features that are articulated under our Act that counts as archaeological remnants, such as ring ditch fortification, house mounds, raised platforms, if there are burial sites and so forth. But this has to be confirmed through archaeological excavations undertaken.
Which has not been done.
Which has not been done. Okay.
Why hasn't it been done?
Basically,
because some would say, oh, suddenly now then you want to have a look at it, but you totally were not looking at it before.
Basically, there were proposals in the past to have this, but of course we will need consent of Department of Lands, the SEC, who was the lessee at that time, and of course until now, and of course Town and Country Planning.
So a whole range of
stakeholders. They have to approve
involved,
first before we start digging in any place.
But the proposal was there.
But the proposal was there.
When did you make that proposal? That's been a few years now. It's been a long time now?
I think in the early 2000.
Okay.
Early 2000. Yeah.
So there were plans.
There were plans to
for
have
this
that.
place.
Yeah. So basically, what had resulted in that decision or that proposal being done was that when they were at the relocation of this site, it was used to be a netball and basketball court. There was some movement on the surface.
You can still see some.
So there were some movements here. Basically, during that movement, the archaeology team, the museum had come through and they found some remnants of pottery sheds. So pottery sheds are archaeological evidence which demarcated this site was a site of habitation.
Right.
People were living here. So basically, but they did not explore further to do real archaeological digs to ascertain.
Check it out really well.
So
because people, now that you mention it, there used to be a netball court here. There used to be a place where the netball games were held on Saturdays. In this car park, and you can still see some remnants of the. So at the time, was the concerns not raised? They don't have netball there because that's an ancestral archaeology,
because of archaeological attributes that are here. Well, basically, that's management at that time, and basically those that were at the helm of decision making. But personally, from me, the setting up of a spaces such as sports space would be on the surface arena. It does not go right down
like
to
a building would do.
Building would do, basically unearthing majority of.
Yes, because that is what the minister said. He said, look, we're taking, the car park will remain, we will take that area. There's been buses parked here, and he pointed to all the damage to, and he says, no one raised these issues before, but now when we want to do the Indian High Commission, a lot of issues have been raised. So you're saying it's because of the type of work that will be undertaken?
Yes. You know, for any development, and this is mandated in our Act, POAPI Act, for any development to be pursued by government or any other agencies when it is development partner and so forth, normally we are consulted in terms of undertaking an archaeological impact assessment, like an environmental impact assessment. So this is pursued first so that we can ascertain that there are cultural attributes that are there, or artifacts or remnants that would demarcate that, okay, this site has significance, it needs protection, does not need to be touched. In the list that was given initially, and this we raised in our concern letter to the COSCC, is that the name of the space was Thurston Gardens, the list, Thurston Gardens and Mecca Ground. So basically, that was Thurston Gardens, and this was performance ground.
This was before the netball court?
This was before the netball court, so in the 1930s, 40s, and some of our old...
Okay. So, it had been raised by the traditional landowners or people who had links to this area, traditionally, hundreds of years ago, or 100, 200 years ago. And they're saying that this was an ancestral burial ground. Is there evidence that this was an ancestral burial ground? Because according to the minister, he's seen no documents to indicate that this was an ancestral burial ground.
You know, from the Fiji Museum perspective and the board, and of course our act, to ascertain that we have to do an excavation.
And that has not been done.
And that has not been done.
So you cannot say for sure that it was a ancestral burial ground, and you cannot also not discount that it was a burial ground.
True, correct. So basically at this point there have been written documentation. There's Coleman, there's Gravel and others.
These are the
writers.
Who have talked about
writers, yeah, who have talked about scenarios in our history that showcase or basically raise the idea that this was the area that had the old silver village.
Yes. So according to the map that was shown to us by the minister, the old silver village was at the corner of what the Thurston Botanical Gardens now at the beginning, where the entrance was. And it did not say any other thing. It just says it said Old Silver Town, and we saw that on the map. Now, obviously, a village is not just located. There's plenty other things that are associated around with it.
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen. But as the minister told us, he felt that there had been misconception. That people felt that the commission land was going to be where the botanical gardens are at the moment. And he says that's a separate thing. The botanical gardens, and he pointed, that's like 50, 60 meters away. Botanical gardens, and he said the car park here will not be touched. It will remain part of the museum and the gardens, and it's just this area. Now you think that they are all the same?
Okay, based on our assessment, in terms of when you assess a site of heritage significance, these are all linked. Just like you mentioned, a village may be contained in one area, but there are other attributes that are linked to that, and it extends miles, sometimes goes right to the horizon. So basically, this is where we are coming from in terms of identifying and linking the landscapes. And just like a chain of the cycle of the food chain, if you cut off one, the whole links is disrupted. Similarly here. So what we are saying is that there are attributes in there that is linked to here. And say, for instance, this tree that as part of the initial setting of the botanical gardens, this tree was also one of the initial trees that were planted, so it's more than 100 years old.
Okay.
So from our perspective, this counts as a natural heritage feature because of that nature. Similarly, the grounds being used, and also in the recordings, in the writings, there were well, in some of the writings that were written, a burial site right to, and they were pointing the
they were close to the clock.
Gazebo, clock tower.
Yeah, the clock tower.
So
I recall that. Yeah.
Yeah, so there were writings about that. So the village site may be there, but there are areas all linked.
Interest,
and this whole site, and there were elements of there being a ring ditch fortification.
Where?
That they did not ascertain.
Okay.
Or they did not confirm in the book. The ring ditch fortification, there will be mounds in the space as well. So through the development of the botanical gardens through time, they must have disturbed all these.
Another
areas,
point made by the minister was this was one whole list altogether, and that included the government house and included the museum, which was then zoned off, the botanical gardens, and that included the British High Commission, which one could say also would be considered as an area of historical significance. So, how serious is this area? How strongly are you fighting this? That you think that it's very, very important to Fiji's heritage and to the upholding the act that the museum is mandated to promote and to protect?
The seriousness of our raising concerns regarding this have been raised in our objection that have the written objections that we've submitted to the CEO. And like you mentioned, really raised is basically the act. We have a role to play in terms of seeing that the site of historical or heritage significance with archaeological or not remnants is protected.
Right.
So to ascertain that, we have to have, and that's a way forward that we are suggesting, is that we have to have this excavation undertaken, so basically we can ascertain if the site does have.
So you feel very strongly that needs to be done first?
That has to be done like any other development that's being done around the country. They normally seek our assistance to undertake excavation.
How strong is that act? I mean,
it has been in existence since the 1940s.
Does it alone can stop a development, or is there elements that override it?
There's elements in the act that has said that the board has the powers to impose a stop work order, and we've done that in the past.
Are you intending to do that here?
I can't preempt any decision as yet now, but basically, from our perspective in terms of the board, we would really like to have our concerns as per the documents that have been addressed to the CEO SEC addressed, and basically the way forward that we are suggesting, if the possibility, yes, with the consent of the Department of Lands, because they are the Crown lease owners, and of course the traditional Tuisovo get the traditional consent, and of course SEC and Town and Country Planning. So
all involved. So as one key issue, I would think, is that you have to prove that this is a heritage site with archaeological, because according to the minister, he does not have any documentary evidence to support that. You say you do, or you're saying you need to check?
There's already existing literature that provides facts that this was a site of cultural and historical and of course archaeological significance. The second step, which we hope to have endorsed, is basically doing that archaeological excavation, which then confirm that does.
And it may not be in the documents, but it's part of oral history, and some of these things were not written down.
Yes.
Would that be correct?
The interesting thing for us, basically, when we do our work, it's linking the oral history, the intangible, with the stories, with tangible features that are there. So in the Act, it defines some of these features, such like I mentioned, ring ditch fortification, mounds, like I was mentioning to the others, the cave that is at the back there, which has close link to the museum, because we stored our objects there in the 1940s when during World War II there was no other space to store our objects there. So the Act provides for that. So it defines those features, and that can be used as a way forward in terms of linking the stories and the narratives that are shared by the people.
So thank you. So historical area, archaeological site, heritage site, don't touch it.
Something like that.
Because I mean, there was a netball court before and buses are parked here now.
Yes.
But you're saying that's on the surface. It's different from trying to do something.
Well,
because it's a lease, it's a 99-year lease.
It's a 99-year lease. There has been plans. I mean, there are plans, ongoing plans in terms of the development of Thurston Gardens, and this was launched in 2014 by the Friends of the Thurston Gardens. Basically, it the proposal was to extend it up to here, to convert the site not only into a botanical space but also a site for research and
Okay.
education for our children. So it covers this area as well as part of the bigger master plan. So given that this is Crown land, of course government has the last say. I think that has been secluded to that area only. So in terms of site, from our side, in terms of our act, we really would not want this
And
area touched.
you're going to try and uphold that act
Yes.
and try and protect
It's
it,
not
eh?
only for us now, but for our future generations as well.
Has that act ever been tried in court?
Yes,
Like to say this is the thing and you've taken it to court to put a stop to
there has
development?
been scenarios, instances in the past where our officers from doing work around Fiji, they've been summoned to
make the
the courts
case.
to make cases for those and provide evidence, and that has come out well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of opposition. It's sensitive, a lot of feeling.
Very true.
The minister feels that, and the government feels that there's been a lot of misconception. But even though it's away from the botanical garden, you still feel it's a part of the heritage thing altogether. Should not be touched. Now, the only thing I had to end our discussion, the government says we're getting a piece of land in New Delhi with US 55 million or something to that effect, about 105, 110 Fijian dollars. And it's an important piece of property. And that we're giving them on lease or 99 years. From your standpoint, your perspective, your point of view, why is this important than just giving up the piece of land for the 55 million property that we'll get in New Delhi?
Well, Stan, our concerns have been raised in the documentation that has been submitted by the board. So it vests with the decision makers on whether they move forward with this proposal or not.
Whether you have to weigh the
and checks and balances amongst others. So we really can't make any decision, nor can we say anything pertaining to the arrangement that our government has made. So for us, from our end, and that's something that I want to emphasize, basically what we have done is as per our legislative function, as per our act which mandates us to work, we are providing an advice based on what we hope that, or what we see as something that will affect our communities, the nation as a whole, and of course government being the key driver of all our the mainstay of most institutions.
Thank you for taking the time to discuss with us.
No,
And I
I
hope
understand.
whatever position people have, they see a clearer picture.
Yes.
After listening to what the minister said and now listening to what
Thank you.
the Fiji Museum have given its perspective. Thank you for joining me on Simpson and 8.
Nakastan.
That was Simpson and 8 for today. We've brought you two perspectives of the proposed rezoning. One from the minister, who are pushing the idea to rezone that area and exchange it with the property that will be given by the Indian High Commission in New Delhi, and the concerns and views raised by the Fiji Museum, who are opposing that move. As I said, sensitive issue, a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings. We did try to speak to the landowners, the traditional landowners of the area from Suvo village. They declined to be interviewed, but they have given their opposition to the Suvo City Council. So from a beautiful day here at the Botanical Gardens, I'm Stanley Simpson. See you next week.